Hello, good people of the internet. This is Amy with a Y, reporting from an undisclosed location in rural Minnesota, where I am currently high on narcotics and recovering from a flare-up of my Crohn's disease that put me in the hospital for about 4 days last week. I am just here to let you know that I had to skip out on recording this week because hospital. But since we are nothing if not professional, Amy with an I picked up the ball and went ahead and recorded an episode with a very special guest that I think you all will enjoy. I just wanted to come on and let you know that I'm not officially dead yet. I may be soon. I'm not a ghost at this point, but it could happen. So since I'm here, I want to go ahead and thank our patrons because I'm not sure that Amy with an I did that. So without further ado, I give you our patrons. We have Maddie, By Any Means Podcast, Wendy, EncyclopediaDumbAmerica.com, Jesse, one of our newest patrons, Nathan Dickey, Dr. Dylan, Kimberly, Rebecca increased her pledge. Thank you so much, Rebecca. We heart you. We have Mr. Larry Yellingman of the Man Yells at News podcast, Alan, Dwayne, Jerry also increased her pledge. Jerry, you are the bomb. I love you. Then we have Rich, Alice at the Ask and Tell Project, askandtell.com, Amy's boring sister, Jenny, who increased her pledge. I don't know if we mentioned that last time, but she is 100% more awesome than my brother, who does not pledge or listen to my show. And as always, our top patron, Ms. Ashley, who is fantastic. We love you, Ashley. So just wanted to get that out there, make sure that we thank the patrons before you listen to Amy with an I and our very special guest. Reminder that if we get up to 25 patrons, Amy and I will be doing a live drunk cast on YouTube Live. So we are currently at, I can't do math, but it looks like about 15 to 17 patrons. So the minute that we hit 25, we will be getting drunk and going on YouTube Live. So enjoy the show without me.
Welcome to Secular Soup. Stay tuned for real talk about atheism, feminism, politics, parenting, and whatever the fuck else Amy and Amy want to talk about, because this is their show. And get ready for a whole lot of motherfucking profanity.
You want to hear a secret?
I won't tell anybody. Go ahead. If I sit next to you, I'm going to get gonorrhea. It's going to jump into me. Just two ladies hanging out.
Is it okay for me to make fun of his neck waddle if I make fun of my own neck waddle?
I'm not sure.
That's a real ethical conundrum.
Would you know if you were born a lizard person, or can you be like adopted into the...
I think you know.
We're such professionals.
We really are.
Buckle up, bitches. It's time to have some soup.
I'm Amy with an I, and joining me is not Amy with a Y. It's Lydia.
With a Y.
With a Y. With an L and a Y.
There you go.
Welcome to Secular Soup. I have a guest blueberry floating in a bowl of tomato soup. And today we're doing men. Why they're awful. Basically.
Well, some of them, yes.
Okay, not all men. I get it. I know.
Yes, right. Not all men, right?
Yeah, are we?
Because if we say, if we don't clarify, somebody's going to write into the show.
Good.
Something right.
We like it. We like the angry emails, and we like getting told off.
Nice.
So yeah, basically I thought that we could talk about the atheist movement and how it's lacking women's voices and maybe what we can do about it. Because our audience is it's actually a good mix of men and women, which is surprising. I thought we would be talking in an echo chamber, but we actually have men listening.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well, I will say that I've noticed in the last probably 3 or 4 years that the movement has been moving in two very divergent directions.
Yes.
One direction seems to be a direction that is inclusive, that is community-centered, that is other-centered, that is humanist, that cares about social justice, that cares about inclusion. And the other direction seems to be more libertarian and more individually minded.
The egalitarians.
Yeah, exactly. More rights centered. And by rights, I mean their own rights centered. These are very sort of disparate ways of thinking about the world. And so I dare say we have a schism on our hands.
I agree.
Yes. And I would say that within those two divergent movements, or the divergent forks of that movement, is that we will see in the sort of more humanist side that I do think there is more representation of people of color, of women, of trans folks, LBG. I'm trying to think of all the letters. LGBTQ people. I mean, all different folks. Whereas what we see, I think, more in the libertarian rights, centered side, it tends to be more, let's just say it, white men.
White cis men.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So some of the podcasters, some of the more well-known podcasters are very concerned about they are somehow being othered or being put in a position now of minority, which is a little absurd if you think about everything as a whole.
Yeah, if you're standing in a place of privilege, it's kind of silly to say, what about me?
They're like, what? My privileges. But my privileges.
But what about me?
Like,
I'm only a white male.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, welcome to the club that the rest of us are in.
Guess what?
This is what life is like when you aren't in
Exactly.
in the apex of privilege. So
it's a little uncomfortable, isn't it? How does it feel?
Yeah, stuff happens. Exactly. So in any case, I myself have moved away from working with folks that have gone in that direction of the kind of the more, free speech and individual rights direction. I did, for a while work with a well-known podcaster who has gone that direction. We have fully diverged. We're not in that.
Right.
We don't even operate socially anymore. So here I am and I've actually kind of done away last summer I said on my Facebook that I wanted to be disaffiliated with new atheism in particular. And it was because I just was very uncomfortable with what I thought the movement was standing for. Its refusal to take seriously the concerns of women, especially with some of the poorly behaved men in that movement. We all know that Lawrence Krauss recently,
right.
Lots of folks came forward and talked about him. In any case, at least a year ago, I said, I'm done with new atheism. I don't want to be called that. I don't want to be called atheist, really. What I'd really like to be called is humanist. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of where I've stood ever since.
That makes sense.
For those of you listening, we love you. You're awesome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of an inclusive movement. Thank you for hearing us out when we complain about men, because what we are complaining about are the guys that are refusing to listen to us. Mm-hmm. We're not really complaining about the ones that say, okay, yeah, we see what you're talking about.
Right. And that's what we've said on here before, is what we're saying to the men is, if you hear something that's uncomfortable, just say something. Because it has to come from everybody. We can't just sit there and complain about men all the time. It has to come from men also. And say, hey, that's not okay. You can't act like this. You can't say that. You can't be that way anymore. It's not acceptable.
Yes.
They have to stand up to each other.
Because a lot of what happens in spaces where women are not actually there to hear it and stand up for ourselves. Like, I shudder to think what men have said about me or my friends in a locker room.
That's exactly what I was going to say, locker room talk.
Only space.
Yeah.
Like, I just shudder to think what's been said because I wasn't there to defend myself, and who defended me in that conversation? Probably no one. And probably very vile things were said.
And we need to be better, and they need to be better, because the next generation deserves better.
Yeah. I agree.
They just do.
I agree.
And
I agree. And, I'm raising a son.
Yeah, I have two. I am too.
You've got kiddos as well. And so the thing is that I don't want to ever be thought of as wanting to create a world in which men just reverse places with women, because that's not what it's about. I don't want my son to be the disadvantaged minority.
No, because that's not comfortable, and it's not fair.
It isn't. What I do want is for women's concerns to be taken seriously. It was interesting because Ruth Bader Ginsburg said something one time about what it would take for her to think that the Supreme Court had finally sort of come to an equal place for men and women. Mm-hmm. And they said, would it be a Supreme Court that was half men and half women? And she said, men were on the Supreme Court for, I think she said 90 years or something. I can't remember the exact number. Before any women were on it at all.
Right.
So we would need 90 years of women
just to balance it out.
Just to balance it out. When statements like this are made, then men suddenly get very uncomfortable because they're like, oh, so you're just pushing us out because then there's going to be 90 years of female representation. And it's not our fault that people in the past did these things. And I can see that.
It's true. It's not their fault.
Yeah. It's true.
But they have to see the disparity. You have to see it, that it's there. That we're starting from a place so much further down the line.
Exactly. So when we say things like, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg says things like, we'd have to have 90 years of women on the Supreme Court, what we're trying to say to you is understand the position we're starting from. And instead of complaining about the privilege we're trying to, take away from you, so to speak, instead of we're not trying to take away your privileges. We're trying to raise ourselves to the point where we also have all the privileges too.
Right. Instead of having to fight against it just to be equal.
I think the first and foremost place where it starts, honestly, is the interactions that men and women have sort of in just everyday contact with each other.
I agree.
Although the situation with Lawrence Krauss is appalling, the fact of the matter is most of the women that he harassed were women he didn't know. I mean, we saw Christina Rad came out on video and talked about how he grabbed the hem of her skirt and did some things at a conference she was at. And this is a woman he'd never really met before.
Yeah.
So although his behavior is quite egregious, really the bulk of what we women are dealing with most of the time isn't from people like him, because that was a 5-minute interaction she had with a man she didn't know. The bulk of what we're dealing with are the men in our everyday lives, our partners, our romantic partners.
That's true.
Especially in our communities, our atheist communities here, like you and I live in Dallas, so here on the ground in Dallas, I mean, how we're interacting with those men.
I don't.
I think it's, you don't much anymore.
Not really.
Yeah.
I kind of pulled away.
Can't recall if you were there or not, but you may recall that I gave a talk on feminism at our local FOF.
That was the one that I was right in the early stage of my divorce, and I was there for a minute, and then I had to leave because I was kind of having a breakdown.
No, that's cool. No, that's cool. I got you. Yeah. I just couldn't recall.
I was there for a second.
But I mean, even in that scenario where I was welcomed, I was introduced by a man, the audience was made up of women and men.
It was a good mix.
It was a very good mix. And even in that scenario where I was welcomed, there was somebody who during the Q&A basically did a what about the men's question. And I was like, guys,
tell me the names later.
Right. But I mean, even in our most sort of progressive sort of moment.
In our little bubble that we feel, that's your people.
The long and the short of it is we have a long way to go. I think romantic relationships, especially with other atheists, can be damaging and problematic. Because again, despite how sort of progressive people claim to be, a lot of times when it comes to male-female interactions, we falls into
the stereotypical gender roles and
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, even with those of us that are staunch, vocal feminists, we find ourselves in relationships.
I fall right into it. I actually just was talking about that today with a friend, that my pattern of behavior is to find people that I can give everything to and not expect anything back. So I'm just emptying myself out to make someone happy, and I'm just hollow. It leaves me with nothing. When I need to be taken care of equally or more. Cherish me.
That right. And that, again, that's sort of...
And I fall right into it. I just I just got out of another relationship where that was the dynamic again. And
yes.
It's not healthy.
It's really not. I have to say that male and female interactions, we have terminologies for these things in the counseling world. Codependence is a term I can think of. There are narcissistic behaviors that happen, and this stuff is sort of codified into our normal female-male interactions where one is the giver and one is the taker, and it's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, if we're talking about male-female interactions within our community, I mean, this is within our community, this is within our own dating circles.
Right.
The most intimate places, the most intimate people in our lives are putting us in a position to...
Well, and we've been trained to be subservient to a certain extent.
Yes.
You fall right into it. When you're presented with it, at least I do. I don't know about you as much, but at least I do. When I'm presented with a situation where I'm going to be the subservient member of the relationship, I just accept it and fall into it. I'm like, oh, okay, because that's just what's expected of me. Because I was trained from the time I was young to just be quiet and happy and joyful and... defer to a man. That's just how I was raised.
And we are forced to choose between our highest ideals and the practicalities of everyday workings of a relationship.
Right. And then you end up being just, the bitch.
Right.
You're just, well, she's such a bitch. I can't believe it. She, how dare she draw those lines?
Exactly. So in any, I think there's a place in any discussion about the atheist community.
Absolutely.
I think there's a place in that discussion about the intimate relationships between men and women in that community in particular.
Right.
And then moving beyond that, the relationships that we have as a community, like our community here in the Dallas area, and then our relationships to other communities and other areas.
Right.
As you can see, like the further out we get from those intimate circles, the less interaction we have with other people, the less sort of, if you will, problems they are. Like if you go to a national convention, short of, the men that are being skeevy and trying to prey on
which
women,
is always going to, I mean, that's just a part of it.
Right. But short of that, the interactions that are there are between the strangers. They aren't necessarily intimate interactions.
Right.
Politeness may rule the day. And,
good. Yeah.
And we'll pat ourselves on the back and we'll say, gosh, aren't we so progressive? And then we'll go home in our own intimate relationship and fall into these patterns again. So
yeah, that's the problem. Actually, last week, we talked about online dating.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have experiences with that also.
Yes, unfortunately.
Because I was all of 2 weeks into it. And so I'm basically a pro at this point.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So we were sharing online dating horror stories. If you want to share any of those.
Well, yes, because
I know you were in the online dating community.
I was, and I believe in being upfront about who I am as a person. I'm
completely transparent and authentic, and it kind of leaves me open to really creepy interactions.
So it does sometimes, and there's sort of a balance of what you want to put out there to make yourself sort of attractive to who you hope to attract, and then
they're not seeing the Skype video on my end, that's for sure.
Well, and you have to balance that with like who you actually are as a person.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to date a right-wing conservative Christian. Like, it's not going to happen. So I will say on my profile, I'm a humanist. I'm non-religious. Those sorts of things.
I put on mine, I'm not religious at all, so don't try to save my soul. I put that right there. But Christians still message me.
I'll put that on my profile, and either they won't read it, or they will miss it, or they'll read it and then purposely try to missionary date me. Well, they'll try to, the missionary dating thing where they're like, oh, they want to take you out to dinner so they can preach the gospel to you. I'm like, guys, no.
I know, reading's hard.
I do ask people up front, like, hey, I'm progressive. Like, I don't affiliate myself necessarily with one political party or another, but
I just tell them that I am liberal. I'm more liberal for sure. I'm liberal. I'm not religious. And and like I told you the other day, that if anyone has a cross on in their picture or wearing camo, I immediately swipe away from them. I'm like, nope, I am not going. I'm not into like the hunter, group or religious. I'm just not. That's not my. It's not my scene.
Long story short is that between the guys that sort of send you the skeevy messages and the guys that are trying to save your soul, the guys that find you abhorrent because the first thing they want to know is if you voted for Hillary.
I haven't been asked that, actually.
I had a picture of me on my dating profile that had a sticker that said I voted, and somebody wrote me and said, who did you vote for? They wanted to know because, it was a deal breaker for them, which is fine.
It's a deal breaker for me too.
Yeah, it's fine. So,
because it's Trump only, right? Like that's your stance too, because that's mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't
100%. If you voted for Trump, you're in my corner. No.
Being a progressive, liberal, non-theistic, humanist in Dallas.
In Dallas, it's really not the greatest dating pool. So I realized the other day, I was messaging someone, and I realized that he dated one of my good friends. Like, as I was messaging him, we've been messaging for like 4 days or something, and he's a really nice guy, and I'm going to go out with him, and he's probably going to hear this because he listens to the podcast. And
oh my God.
It's fine. But I realized in the conversation that he's my really good friend's ex. And so I called her and I was like, hey, is this okay? Like, what's going on? And we were talking about it. We were like, okay, we're atheist. We're outspoken feminist. We have similar, like we're kind of sassy and curvy, and we're, pale skin, dark hair and glasses. Odds are we're going to attract the same men. And we're going to be attracted to the same people because they're atheist and smart and, liberal or whatever. It's just inevitable. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we kind of came to terms with the fact that, look, it's going to happen. This is just what's going to happen.
That reminds me of a story. This is so funny.
No,
but
go
I have
for
a
it.
girlfriend. I have a girlfriend that I've known for many, many years. I've probably known her for 20 years. But anyway, so this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. But I had just moved back to Dallas from Austin, and I was online dating, and this guy asked me out. And I went out with him, and it was fun. It was a laid-back sort of thing. And he said, oh, I'd like to see you again. I was like, that's cool. So we were like, maybe we could do a movie on Saturday. Again, something kind of laid back.
Right. No pressure.
He texted me like a day before we were supposed to go to this movie and says, I'm not really sure I can do it on Saturday because I've got to go to work on Saturday morning. Because he was a photographer. And he said, I have a photo shoot that I think is actually going to probably run long. Do you think we could reschedule? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. So I planned on Saturday to go over to my friend's house. And so I was going to hang out with her. Well, so I get to her house and she's like, how have you been? Because I hadn't seen her in a while. And we start talking. And I said, well, I went on a date with this guy on thus and such. He's a photographer. His name is thus and such. And she goes, wait, he's a photographer and his name is thus and such? And I'm like, yeah.
No.
And she goes, wait. And she pulls out her phone and she pulls up the dating app. And she goes, is it this guy? And I go, yeah. She goes, yeah, I was supposed to go out with him this afternoon, but I couldn't. And I was like, well, you were supposed to go out with him this afternoon? This was the Saturday that he had tried to postpone the movie with me because it wasn't that he was working late. It's that he wanted to go on a date with my good friend. And he didn't know we were friends.
Oh, that is funny.
So he texts me. He texts me like while I'm at her house and says something like, I'm done working or I'm finished. Do you still want to get together?
Because she was hanging out with you.
Exactly, because she couldn't. She couldn't go out with him. So I took a picture of her and me together. I did a selfie with her, and I sent it to him. And I said, I'm hanging out with my very dear friend right now. I've known her for about 20 years. Sent the picture to him. And we didn't hear from him for about 15 minutes. And he finally texts back and he goes, I'm not going on any more dates with you, am I? And I go, no. Like he figured out that,
Yeah, no.
that we'd been talking about it. It was so funny. But yeah.
It's just, that's another thing is I don't understand the dishonesty. It's pointless. If he had said, hey, I'm seeing someone else tomorrow, you would have been okay with that. Because there's no commitment at that point of one date.
Yes, you're right.
I would have been like, okay.
If he'd have said he was seeing someone else, probably what my response would have been is that's cool that you're seeing someone else, but when you're like ready to see me exclusively, let me know because I'm not like I don't do. You're going to date 5 people. I'm going to date. Oh
5. No, yeah, but if I'm going on a first date, I'll go on a first date on Saturday and then a first date on Sunday. Like I'm fine with that.
Right. Well, I think the mistake that he made was that he canceled his date with me in order to try to make a date with her.
Yeah, that was where he got shady. Because if he had just said, hey, I had fun. I'd like to see you again. I already had this lined up. I'm going to go see someone else, but I'd love to see you again.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been an ethical way to do it.
Right. So, and then after 2 or 3 dates, if things had started to get a little more serious,
absolutely, start drawing some lines and set some boundaries.
I'm not comfortable being physical with anyone who's dating someone else.
I'm not either.
I'm not. Yeah.
And I require them to get tested, and so I got a random text of he was like, "Hey, here's this test." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Thank you.
But anyway, so I've done the online thing, and it's interesting.
Yeah, but, I'm in it right now, and I've been on it for 2 weeks, and I'm ready to uninstall everything. I'm just done. Like I think I'm ready.
Yeah,
because I have like a couple people that I've gone out with, and I'll stay in touch with them, and I'm good. Like I'm all set. And then if I need it again, I'll get back in, and then I'll just back away, and not really. And all the good morning text and all the good night text, and I just. Like, I see a name go across my screen. I'm like, I can't even remember who this is anymore. Like, at this point,
Yeah.
I don't even.
Yes. So.
It's exhausting. And the number of likes that you get just because you're female and attractive, just the sheer volume. Because I've been on for 2 weeks and I have close to 500 likes on OkCupid, I think. And then out of those, how many of them have messaged me randomly, So I kind of have to like turn off. I have to go through and clean out notifications and just.
Yes.
I know you know. You feel it.
It is. I did try Bumble for a while.
I'm on Bumble.
Okay.
It's
The problem with Bumble is that you don't sort of get the flood of,
right.
There's the French have a term for it called dragueur. It's like a minesweeper. It's a ship that casts a net out and then it drags up all the stuff from the bottom of the ocean, right? The shotgun approach that men take, I call them draggeurs. But anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't get that on Bumble, but at the same time, like, you only have so much time that they can respond before it cuts you off. And it's like, if he's working and he hasn't talked to you in 2 days, it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't, they need to extend their.
Yeah, I'm not really feeling it. I was talking to one guy from Bumble and we were supposed to go get drinks, but I'm over it,
Yeah.
I'm kind of over it. I'm like, I can get a drink and sit in my living room in my pajamas. Like, I could do that. It'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Yes.
So that was one thing we were talking about last week was internet dating.
Yeah. So for the atheist community, it's interesting.
Well, it's a really small world.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Because I was going to go to our local group, but I feel like there's limited options there. So that's why I downloaded all the apps. Because I'm like, I know everybody there basically, and it's very limited. So I figured I would open it up to maybe people that aren't part of our community or maybe moved here from upstate, or like maybe not upstate, but maybe moved here from like the East Coast or California that are open-minded and humanist and just not, like, it's not a big deal to them. So they don't have to join in anything.
So the problem of dating folks in our community, I did date one person in our community, in our Dallas area community. It didn't end well for us. And then it was a big deal because now everybody watched the end of this relationship and everybody saw what happened. And after that, I was like, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
So, if I'm going to socialize with a group of people and these are going to be my friends and this is going to be a place that I'm going to spend, social time with people, I don't want to put myself in a situation where if something ends, that the group has to choose one of us.
And that's what happened to me too, is I lost several very good friends because they chose. They chose. And it was it's unfortunate when that happens. Because, as well as I do, when something ends like that, it's not something that it's like a Team Lydia or anything. It's not like pick a side. It's two people that just don't fit.
Yeah.
Like, there shouldn't be a choosing of a side. Although I was right. And you were right.
I could say more about my situation, but I don't want
Me
to
too.
because it's water under the bridge now, and I don't hold grudges in that situation, especially with that particular person.
I am furious.
That's so funny. Well, this particular person, we've cleared that ground already, so there's no need to go back and fuss about it at this point.
I get it.
So women in the atheist community.
Yeah, we need more voices. That's why we started this podcast, actually. Because we were like, man, there's Cogdis and there's Scathing Atheist and, there's all these thinking atheists. Like, there's all these guys.
Yeah.
And the men's voices are adequately represented. And so we were like, well, what is that for us? Like, the women's voices aren't heard and Godless Bitches is gone. And we all miss Godless Bitches. So we're sitting there thinking, we were talking about it. My friend Amy with a Y, who's the other host of the show. Yeah. We were like, what do we do? How do we find these other women's voices? And you're like, let's just make it. Let's just do it ourselves. Cause that way it's made, it's done, it's out there and we can be represented.
Yes.
So that's what we were trying.
Yes.
So we're trying to do.
Yes. Well, like I said, I had participated on a podcast for a while and that show involved a couple of women and
I liked it. I liked it when there was women on it.
Yes. That situation has changed a lot because the host of that show moved to California and realized at some point that owning a corporation or owning a limited LLC or whatever, owning something that's a business means that when people work for you, you have to pay them. You can't have an entire crew of volunteers. And so he was forced to change his format lost a lot of his volunteers because of that. You have to pay people. If you have a for-profit company, you have to pay people, or else you have to be a nonprofit to get volunteers. In any case, the format of that show changed, and that particular person went in a direction that I wouldn't have gone anyway. So
yeah.
So here we are. But yeah, I do think we need more women and people of color in our community with voices. I think that, the place where I find the easiest place for me to, I don't know, use my voice is on something like Facebook, where I can sort of keep up with current events. And I don't follow politics that closely because a lot of that stuff really infuriates me, and there's only so much anger you can kind of
and it gets to the point where it's background noise because it's just you're upset about everything every day. Yeah, like it just becomes just like white noise.
It's just daily scandal. It's just daily corruption. And one of the things we know about folks who have narcissistic tendencies is that they thrive on attention. And so at this point, it's like, I'm really not going to provide more attention to someone who's got plenty of attention. So I kind of keep my comments about certain things limited. I am still, liberal and progressive. So I think the breakup of families, the tearing of children away from their parents at the borders is, I live in a border state in Texas. So, I find that stuff to be horrendous. Yeah. And so I do want to talk about, and express things like that. It's interesting because I really do think the internet has been a place where niches can develop and people can find niche markets for things like podcasts, which are good, which is why, one of the concerns I think we've had, and I don't know when it takes effect, but do you know much about the, they're going to change the internet somehow? There's legislation that got passed.
The privacy change. I don't know much about it at all.
Yeah.
I've just seen the memes, so I should probably speak as an authority because I've read memes on it. No, I don't know.
I don't know either. So one of the concerns I have is that, this sort of equalizer of platforms is going to change for us.
I hope it doesn't take away.
I hope so too. So you'd have to pay like Comcast. You'd have to pay different. There'd be like different brackets you would pay for different internet accessibility and sites and speeds and things. So I don't know, but
that sounds scary.
Yes, instead of having the internet all just be one thing, they want to kind of break it up and charge you more money, for
like a la carte service it.
Yeah, yes, basically, like, they can, like, if you're not a real popular website, they can reduce your service feed to something very low and things like that. So, long story short, like, the people with the power still get all the platforms, and the people without it don't. And, of course, who is that going to hurt? Obviously, it's going to hurt people that are trying to equalize things.
Mom and shop businesses, small companies.
Women, people of color,
As usual.
Yeah,
people that always get hurt.
Yeah. Yep. So it's something to think about and pay attention to.
Yeah, that's scary.
So yeah, we got to keep our eyes on that. So what else do you want to talk about in this podcast?
Well, we basically talk about whatever we want. So we can talk about anything. We can talk about...
It just kind of wanders around.
Just all wanders around. There's no really sticking to a script or paying attention to... We always end up talking about our kids at some point too. So it's fine. It's whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like in the intro, which you didn't hear, because we recorded it separate from the intro, it actually says we talk about whatever the fuck we want to. So basically, and you can swear on here too. Just there's explicit labels everywhere.
That's hilarious. Okay. Well,
so that's the thing is I want to be able to have a world for my kids that I'm proud of handing over to them.
Yeah.
And right now I'm not. Like right now I'm terrified about, I have teenagers and I'm afraid of the world that they're living in and engaging in and what they're learning and hearing when I'm not there to not filter it, but kind of act as a soundboard and say, hey, that's dangerous what they're saying, or, especially the atheist movement with the men. It's upsetting what they might be hearing or learning from,
Yeah.
the atheist YouTubers. And
Yes. Well, the good news is that the millennials are actually a larger cohort of people than the baby boomers.
so excited about the millennials.
Yes. I'm like, guys,
That's going to change the tide.
Millennials are going to swing the pendulum back in the other direction.
Yeah.
They just need to get out and vote. So that's the good news. But yeah, you're right. I do think that like some of the messages that our kids are hearing are
it's damaging.
problematic and worrisome. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Especially men or males, but the women are hearing it too, and we're internalizing it. The younger girls are hearing it and internalizing it too. So
yeah, so maybe we could talk about this for a second.
Go for it. Yeah, whatever.
so it came out on Facebook about Samantha Bee called, I don't know if you heard about this.
I did, yeah.
Called Ivanka Trump a cunt.
Right.
Which is not a nice word to call women in America. And I realize in other countries, like that word is about as bad as saying crap. I mean,
but is she wrong?
Well, so that's I think that's what's interesting about the different criticisms we're hearing from like different areas of the internet. I have feminist friends who are saying things like, at what point does calling a woman that word, like at what point is that a feminist thing to do? And I see that viewpoint.
Like owning it. Yeah.
Is it, well, so can women call other women bitches? Like, can women call other women the C word? Can we, like, is that something we can own the same way maybe people of color can own terms that are used in negative ways towards them? So, so the question is, can Samantha Bee get away with saying that because she's a woman? And on the other hand, we have, and I think that's the interesting conversation to have.
I do.
The uninteresting conversation I keep seeing going around is when conservatives say things like, "Well, now she needs to lose her show because Roseanne Barr just lost her show," and I'm like,
she was racist.
Yeah, this is not.
This is not. Yeah,
this is one woman calling another woman
a white woman calling another white woman
a term used to degrade women.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Roseanne Barr compared a woman of color to an ape. That's completely different. So that's kind of the uninteresting conversation because we could sort of do away with that quickly. And also, Trump, again, not to talk about him too much because I don't like giving people attention who don't deserve attention. But but he came out saying that, how unfair it was that Roseanne had lost her show. This is from the man who was caught on camera saying that he grabbed women by the P word.
He was bragging about it. That's assault. He was bragging about assault.
There's really nothing he can say that gives him any credibility to gripe about what she said. Mm-mm. So in terms of like the conservative gripes about all this, I'm like, guys, you've missed the point again.
Right.
It's easily defeatable. That's the uninteresting conversation. Yeah. But like I said, the interesting one is what I'm hearing from sort of the left.
Like where is the line? Can we take it back and own it? But she wasn't using it in that taking it back power way. She was using it as a derogatory term.
She was using it derogatory. Yeah.
So the way you present words matters.
And what I said on Facebook is that she shouldn't have called her a gendered term. She should have called her what if she is, a feckless asshole.
Feckless asshole. I did see that actually. I did see that.
Everybody's got one. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's what she should have called her, and then this would be a non-controversy, so.
The other thing I've seen is that people are upset that she apologized.
Yeah, she did. And I had mixed feelings about that.
I had mixed feelings about it too, because I don't think she's wrong. Like she is the C word. Like absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you say it, you stand behind what you say and you own it. And you say, hey, I'm taking that back. Like you make a stand. And don't apologize. It's interesting. It's an interesting situation.
Yes, it really is. So I think honestly, if Samantha Bee wants to criticize using, words that, basically are insulting or degrading to other people, use one that's not gendered. There's plenty of those floating around.
Yeah, not as many. It seems like derogatory terms for women are just plentiful.
It's true. And I think if Samantha Bee really wanted to be interesting, she could have called her a dick, see how that would have.
I've said that before multiple times. I call people dicks or say that was a dick move, to other women. I'm like, that was a real dick move.
Yeah.
because it's more surprising.
So I thought that was an interesting little...
That is an interesting take on it.
That we had on the internet there for a while, but...
Well, it made Johnny and Laurel go away.
Yeah. That was so weird. I only could hear Laurel, and then eventually the thing came around where you could slow down the speed, and still for most of it I could only hear Laurel. And then by the time I slowed it all the way down, I could sort of hear Yanni, but not really. Like it sounded like a weird version of it was like Yagi or something like that. It didn't even sound like Yanni. So I was like, "It's so weird."
That is weird. I still haven't heard it yet. I'm still stuck on the blue dress or the brown blue dress. I'm a couple of years behind.
Yeah, it's like the white gold versus blue black dress.
Yeah. I'm still a couple years behind because I'm busy and I'm tired.
Yes, I know, right? We're moms.
It's exhausting.
We get tired. It is.
It's exhausting. And I mean, being a single mom is exhausting, and there's all these balls in the air, and I never feel like I'm doing it right. I don't ever feel like I'm doing it right. So
I hear you. How many kiddos do you have again?
I have 3.
3. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have the one. So
and it's really hard.
It is. 1 keeps me busy. So 3 would be a lot.
Yeah. They go all different directions and they have different needs, and I work, 2 jobs, and this is my fun. This is just for fun, but I'm just busy all the time. So I'm like, I should probably pay my bills too at some point. I don't know.
Right. It is the first of the month. We got to sit down and open our bank.
I know. And not just let it stack up behind me and just hope for the best. Because that never goes over well. Yes,
exactly. Any other ground you want to cover? Any other?
No, I just wanted to talk about the atheist movement. Dating's been crazy since my divorce, and
dating's always crazy.
It's just crazy, and I don't like it, but I want the end result. So it's uncomfortable and overly complicated, unnecessarily overly complicated. Yeah, and it's just, can't you just like me and just sit on my couch and watch TV with me? Like, how hard is that?
Right.
But it's actually really hard.
Well, and 2, I wonder how much has changed. Like, I'm in my 40s, and I just wonder how much dating has changed for kids that are in their teens and 20s. But,
yeah,
hopefully their dating situations are really different from ours. But when I was growing up and when I was a teenager, it was like men's goal, their number one goal was to get you into bed. Like,
it doesn't feel like it's different, though, does it?
It doesn't. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't feel any differences in people's attitude towards me. I mean, not everybody. I'm generalizing greatly, but it feels like a lot of people, that's their end goal.
If your number one goal is that you just want to have sex with me, I'm not interested in you. Because my number one goal is to be in a relationship with somebody. And that seems to be a gendered thing, too. That women are raised that the number one thing you want is a relationship, and men are raised the number one thing you want is to have sex with a bunch of women.
Right.
Well,
I'm not in the place where I want a relationship yet. I'm in a place where I want connections. Because I just got out of an 18-year relationship. I don't want a relationship.
You don't want a relationship, you just want connections.
Mm-hmm. Right now.
Yeah. Well, after my relationship with my son's dad ended, I waited almost a year and a half before I started dating really again. I went on a few dates here and there, but it was very, very casual.
That's where I'm at. I'm just kind of
yeah.
And if I find someone and I make those connections, cool. Otherwise, I'm not actively seeking it. Yeah. So, because I'm just not. I'm aware that my heart's not in it yet. Like, my heart's not in the game yet.
Yeah.
And I kind of need to protect that.
For me, it's just that I've never liked the thought of having someone use me for sex. I just don't like it. I don't want that. Because that's how it feels to me. Casual sex feels like using.
Yeah.
So, and other people may, again, I don't want to get hate letters from it.
They'll send it to me. It's okay.
Other people may not feel, there you go. You can get the hate letters. Other people may feel like that's really fun and they enjoy that. For me, it's neither fun
nor... It's Cogdispod at gmail.com.
Yeah.
That's where you send all the hate mail.
That's right. Send your
To
hate mail
Cogdis.
to Amy. Please don't send
Yeah.
it to me.
At Cogdis. Yeah, that's where we tell them to send our dick pics too. Just if you're gonna send us a dick pic, send it to Tom and Cecil because they like that shit and we don't. So
That's hysterical. Oh my God.
yeah, we have a feud at them. They're not feuding back, but we have a feud at them. So eventually,
That's so funny.
we figured that's the way to go. Is
Oh my God.
if you're gonna make it in the podcast world, you have to have a feud with a big dog. And so we just decided that we were gonna take
Yeah.
Cogdis down from the beginning. We were like, they suck.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
So, well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for inviting me. Yes.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up. And that's all we've got for now. Thanks to our fabulous listeners who put up with us droning on week after week. If you enjoy our delightful bitchcraft, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and send us all your monies on Patreon. You can find those platforms by using the Google machine. It's not hard. This week, your donations will go to new shoes for my kids. Sure. If you want to tell the world how awful this episode was, join our Secret Soup Talk Facebook group. If you want to tell us to fuck off personally, you can send us an email that's secularsouppodcast@gmail.com. Please rate and review us on iTunes, Facebook, and wherever else you can review things like this. It will help us spread the soup gospel far and wide. And hey, tell your friends. As always, we'll leave you with the vocal stylings of Mr. Eli Bosnick.
Secular soup creed. Soup is the ultimate virtue. It's delicious, nutritious, patriarchy smashing, racism fighting, warm and fuzzy, human affirming, fun having, anti-theist, glitter throwing, tummy satisfying, pair of new shoes fulfilling, diversity seeking, happiness. Minestrone, beef and barley, chicken broth and split pea, gazpacho, tomato, clam chowder and potato, chicken noodle, beef noodle, egg drop and ramen cup, miso, gumbo, leek and pho. Grab a bowl and taste the magic. Slurp even this.